On today's episode of WatchJRGo, we are back in the shop and we have to go rescue that Range Rover I just worked on again. What is going on, guys? I am WatchJRGo and today I'm here in the shop where I've been for multiple days, and take a look at this. The lev rack is finally up. Most of this is all organized. There's still more to go. This is where it gets into the granular organization, and I really need bolts and nuts bins. I forgot. That's what I'd like to have to really get this all cleaned up, because a lot of this is small, loose parts. So that is next on the to-do list, but for the most part, the shop's looking really clean, really good. But Jared hit me up about that Range Rover again, and he was like, hey man, it started right up the last time I went out there and checked it after you finished with it, and then I went back and now it won't start. And I was like, yeah, I figured that would happen. That's exactly what my thought was, is that you need to start it one more time, drive it straight to the shop, and then let somebody figure it out. But he wants to work on it today. Of course, it's January 1st, the new year, and the shop's not open till tomorrow, so I guess today we're gonna go have some Range Rover fun. So his jump pack won't get that thing started because it's one of those old school lead acid ones that uses a car battery. Those sit at 12 volts. They don't really do much other than support the battery. The new lithium ones, the reason they work so well and they're so small at the same time is because they always way overvolt the charging system. So they typically drive to 15 volts. I've seen little junk ones. I usually have one in here, but it'll put out like 16, 17 volts. So the smaller and cheaper those jump packs are, the worse they are for the car, but the faster they start everything on the planet. With that said, let's jump in the truck and go get him running, and then we're gonna head over here and get to work. All right, Jared, you ready to see this work?
Let's see it.
I think it'll work. So, like I said, Jared came out, tried to start this with the old school lead acid, and it didn't want to do it. You don't have to override, it's not dead. Right. It'll actually read 12 volts the whole time and say that it's fine. Try her out. Oh, it doesn't want to do it, does it? I like it.
This is what it does.
All right, let me try it real quick. Oh, brake and full gas. Okay. That was me keeping it in the throttle a little bit to catch it there, just in case it didn't want to keep going. I think you're good now. You just gotta have the touch, man.
Apparently.
Full brake, full gas for 1 or 2, so it'll flood clear. And then I just bounce it a little bit and it comes back.
I see.
Well, I think it'll drive. You wanna go mess with it? It might get abandoned in my shop.
Kind of figured it would.
All right. When you have to 2-pedal drive the old Range Rover like it's a carbureted V8. And the only reason Jared's doing that is because we think auto start stop might kick in and shut the car down, and then it might not restart. I have a feeling it's always going to restart one time by itself, especially after a drive cycle. But auto start stop obviously can pull the battery down real quick, and that could happen in stop and go traffic, which is why we're hopping on the highway right now and keeping that engine speed up. Okay, we made it back to the shop and we're going to try to restart this thing. We just shut it off. Will it restart? I think it's going to restart at least once, and honestly we should probably try to start it until it dies just to see what's going on. I think when the battery's resting at a higher voltage, maybe it's at like 12.3 or something like that right now, I don't have data, but I would assume it'll restart. And then as it just kind of drops down over time, it doesn't want to do it anymore. It can't overcome the high resistance that we expect is somewhere, probably on that ground in the driver's side wheel well, or at the starter, or somewhere else in the electrical system we've got a bad connection. So, you guys ready to restart it? Let's go. One more thing here, this key. These are keyless go keys. Like all modern cars, they don't have a key. And everybody on the planet just keeps commenting that this is going to be a problem. This literally is impossible to be a problem. There's nothing here except for 2 wires. There might be 3, but start-stop signal should come on CAN, and there's power to the switch. That's all there is to it. It's the simplest thing in the world. It has nothing to do with the car starting. It's literally just a button. There's an antenna here, and there's an antenna there, and there's an antenna there, and one there, and one there, and one here, and any of those antennas talk to the key. The car knows where the key is all the time on modern key systems. So this can never have anything to do with the car starting. Now, it's like an epidemic because of that one South Main video where, I mean, people just kept commenting that he made a video about this. I know what happens. If you have a key with a transponder in it that goes into a cylinder, this can break the transponder. And that's only if you have a physical key that plugs in and turns. Obviously, that is for the power wheel. There's no key slot there at all. So, let's start this thing. Okay, I expected it would work. Shut it off. Don't want to let it charge too much here. The key's in the center console. Look, I could throw the key in the back seat and it will start every time. It does not, it's not a key problem with this car in the slightest. She did just drive 20 minutes over here. I was like, it's gonna keep starting. It's gonna keep starting unless it sits out in the cold for hours and the battery starts to drop into a state where it can't really do this. So it could be the battery. So this is such a good song, I don't want to turn it off. What we're gonna do first, we're gonna load test the batteries, I think. I think that's probably the right thing to do. We could try to run it dead a little bit. Let's see, down. Is that all the way down?
It's still going. Back's going now.
You know what I should do is shut the engine off. Turn the car on. Okay, car's on. Oh, it won't let you lift the car with it off. That's interesting. Now that we've established it's not a key or an immobilizer issue because it's physically impossible, let's keep going on what it could be, which is grounds, battery voltage, alternator, all kinds of cool things. Well, we're in the belly of the beast now, and I've got the battery tester hooked up here. This is the H8, so it should be, we went to O'Reilly's website real quick to get the data. 850 cold cranking amps, 975 cranking amps. So enter battery test, just to see, by chance, there was a bad cell in here. Battery temperature, 70C. You think it's 70C? It seems a little colder than that.
Yeah.
We're gonna say that it's not 70C. 70C is real hot. Yeah. 60 Fahrenheit, 15C, that's what we're gonna call it. It's now testing the battery. But some people were like, it's a brand new battery, could have a bad cell.
Good and pass.
Good and pass. 917 CCA is what it tested at. 12.9 volts at rest. I mean, this battery's great. So, I think that kind of rules out battery. So now we're gonna check the auxiliary battery as soon as I figure out what it's supposed to be tested as. The printer works. AGM flat plate. Rated at 850 and measured 917. That is awesome. So, I think we've ruled out this battery being bad. Now we're gonna test the auxiliary battery right here and see if it's bad by chance. So we've got 13.9, it's dropping quick on this thing. As soon as we hook the battery tester up to the auxiliary battery here, which is there, just like the Bentley, the main battery should load shed. It should, I think it's gonna stay, until the vehicle has turned off all the circuitry, and this battery should have enough charge in it to start the car one time. So 13.92, after sitting for a minute, press enter. We're gonna do a battery test again. So they sell this as a 200 amp flooded lead acid battery. So we're gonna go ahead and see what happens if we test it at 200 cranking amps. And it's about 60 degrees. I mean, it's a little chilly in here. Here we go. Test in vehicle. Well, this is not the result we were expecting from that battery. That's definitely factory, although it is maintained all the time. But 13.6 volts and 359 cranking amps. Maybe Range Rover doesn't define it as cranking amps because it seems like this should have failed. And also, I mean, look at it. It just drops like a rock. This was 14 volts when we started testing, and it's already down to 13.6. So with basically no load at all. Well, we need to fix one thing in this Camaro, and that is the fact that the lighter, the factory lighter here, is missing. I'll show you what's going on here. Yeah. Wow, that looks horrible. But that's not a factory lighter, that's this lighter, isn't it? I think it's the same Chinese lighter. This doesn't even look like any type of lighter I've ever seen because the coil inside is super weird. The coil isn't like perfectly flat. This one's like spot welded to the side there and just strange. Just throw all that junk on the ground. I don't know what happened here. What I do know is this one has the knob and that one doesn't. So I guess we're gonna put the new lighter in and see what happens. I see. So if you push this thing in more, it must make contact, but it's not like a normal lighter. So let's put it in right about there so it looks right. Completes the interior on this thing, but hopefully isn't in the light position because we don't want this thing burning the car down. So now we've got a lighter and a very complete looking interior. Pretty sure the factory one, I think all these are metal. Wow, that's a push button. I wonder if it actually sprays. We fixed the Camaro today. Now back to the Range Rover. Going underneath the Range Rover, we're gonna do a little bit of an inspection here too. And Jared immediately found the first problem. He's like, there's a clunk in the front end. Let's see if it'll focus. If you can see that bushing right there, it is gone. So that could definitely be your clunk. And then I thought I smelled coolant, and all over the bottom of this thing here is coolant. Look at that, everything's wet. It looks like a radiator, just based on where it's at, or a coolant overflow tank, something like that. Not sure what it is, but something's leaking. Everything else in here though, looks brand new. This bushing here looks a little old, probably needs to be replaced, but the ball joints look good. The CVs don't have ripped boots, kind of impressive actually. And wow, those are some brakes. Man, 8 pots, because there's 4 on each side. That's literally insane. I bet this thing stops like crazy. It's built like a tank. Look at these lower control arms. Built like a tank. You've got an exhaust leak right here. Just this tiny little pinhole. It's no big deal. Right in front of the muffler. The active sway bar action, which looks super cool on these. Right there in the center, all hydraulic. Well, for the most part, it looks pretty good. You're just probably in for a radiator.
Yeah, it's okay.
Tires look good.
It's a used car.
It is a used car. Is that a plug?
I believe so.
That's a plug. Oh well, I'd still say they're good. How old are these things? 37 of 19. Oh, with all that tire shine, you can't tell that it's cracking in the center. A little bit of cracking going on. Oh well, the tires are not a problem here today, especially not one we're gonna tackle today. There's the alternator and there's the starter. I don't know if you guys can see that. We'll put the light all the way up in there, but you see that gigantic starter right there? That is where the battery cable connects to the car. So we're gonna pull all these shields off of here. There's an oil leak back there too, just a slight one, the slightest little oil leak. And let's see if we can crack that connection open and make it better. And also we can look at the alternator and see if there's any oil on it. It looked clean from what I just saw, but let's pull these plates off here. It looks like you just need a 15 to pull the whole thing. And these are great plates, the nicest ones I've ever seen. Almost 1/8 inch stamped aluminum to protect the bottom of this car. All right, let's yank it apart. We got that cover off of there, and now we can see the electronic power steering, which is massive. I've never seen that vacuum pump leak oil. The seal around that front vacuum pump there is leaking. Just a little bit, but everything else in here, like there's no front main leak or anything like that. AC looks nice and dry. Everything else in here looks nice and dry, except for the back, obviously. Like we mentioned before, there's definitely a bit of an oil leak right there. But what are we looking for here? The alternator. And the alternator also looks 100% dry. You guys can probably see the black plastic on the back of it through this view here. I can really see it right here, and it's absolutely dry. Not even a hint of oil on that thing. So if it's not a ground in the wheel well or this starter connection, it's nothing. So here's our battery cable. We probably should check the connection on the back of the alternator too, but It's tight in here. There's not a lot of access. But we're gonna get in here, crack these loose, see if there's any corrosion in there, which it doesn't look like there is, but we're gonna find out here in just a moment and go from there. What could it be, Range Rover? Tell us your secrets. Well, we've got the battery cable off the starter. You can see it right there. That is it, and there is not even a hint of corrosion on that. And here is that nut that came off of it as well. It's also perfect, so I don't think the starter connection is our problem. I'm gonna pull the alternator connection too, if I can get my hand all the way up in there. It's a reach. Here's the nut from the alternator. Looks brand new. You can see the alternator is disconnected, just barely, maybe you can see it. It's way up there. I have the cable off right now and everything looks as new as factory. This thing's actually really clean underneath. It might have some random little issues, but like nothing serious here. And all of the electrical connections look perfect. All the boots are on, nothing's ever been apart. So I'm carefully putting it all back. And we did also pull this chassis ground right here to the engine mount. And it's turning a little bit green, and it's a big braided cable. You can see the light is on that braided cable right now, and it connects from the chassis right here to the engine mount right there. Obviously you need to make sure you get a good ground, and the engine mount is typically a rubber isolator. So I'm gonna pull the top off of that too. I'm just checking every single bolt in the charging system and electrical system here. We are on a mission to pull this front inner fender well liner here where the ground is supposed to be that may be failing on this car. So we've checked basically everything on the passenger side. Now we're over here on the driver's side and it looks like it's totally free. Hey, look at that. Is there a ground in here? Oh, there's a ground. And I will say, look on top of it. Just, it's not pretty. It's not pretty, but it's not pretty. Let's bust that loose and see what we find there. That's a lot of grounds, honestly. Found a leaf. ABS pumps under there. All right. Now the YouTube comment that brought us to this said this was a nutsert. That's definitely not a nutsert, that's a stud. But when I loosened it, a bunch of corrosion, look at that. You can see the corrosion flying out of this nut. There's a lot. It's not that bad once we get it open, but there is definitely corrosion between all of those wires. So let's pop them all loose. Well, that looks pretty good, just one piece. I'm gonna wire brush all of this and we're gonna put it all back. And then it's gonna start, because even if we don't fix it, it's gonna start. That's just how life works.
It's just gonna start.
Yeah, there's literally no doubt that it will run after this. When you're troubleshooting intermittent issues like this, the world just has it out for you. So I'm gonna grab the wire brush right now, clean all of this up, we'll put it back. This nut is like magnesium. It's aluminum or magnesium.
Weird.
It weighs nothing.
Doesn't.
It feels like plastic, but it's definitely metal. The back seems good, except for that one little bit, but I think I got it. It's like brushing your teeth. I think that looks pretty good. I will say this stud is welded on and it's not going anywhere, so I think we just put it all back together now. I cleaned it all up, I cleaned up the stud. I'll hit the back of the nut. Here's the nut. I could see this being a problem. And these wires here, the big ones, do look like it's either the ABS pump or the PCM or something like that. So it could be our issue. Let's put it all back together. I just took my longest extension and we went from the top of the car all the way down to that engine mount, broke that bolt loose, checked that ground over there. I'm not thrilled about that one, but I think now we've reseated all the grounds. I bet this thing is fixed no matter what. But one other interesting thing I gotta talk about under the hood, you know the engine well from my other videos when we worked on the Jag for quite a while, but there's a lot of cool things under here. Here we have the ethanol content analyzer, just like a race car, a GTR, anything else on a flex fuel tune. This has factory flex fuel, any GM, Tahoe, Suburban, anything that runs the 85, you need to know how much ethanol is in your fuel. So right here we've got the ECA, which is cool. You can turn it into a race car by just running the 85 basically. And then I saw this cover and I was like, they put a cover over the power steering fluid? It's not the power steering fluid. Take a look at the logo on there. They took away the power steering pump to make life easier, right? Obviously electronic power steering makes everything easier. It's got that. And then they put it back with a mechanical pump to run the sway bars. How crazy is that? So this cover covers what would be the power steering fluid, but in reality is the sway bars, which are hydraulic front and rear. So close that guy back up. We've got remote test ports here, remote bleeder ports for the brakes. A lot of crazy stuff shoved under the hood of this, but I think we've probably got it fixed. So what we're gonna do now, it needs hood struts. Shouldn't be falling that easy. What we're gonna do now is put the skid plate back on underneath and take it for a test drive, because I think it's probably perfect. Going back in, and we've been working on this thing for probably an hour checking grounds, and we still have 1349, which is where it's been for the last hour. So I think we're calling it. The aux battery is likely good. That's not much of a load, but it's a load. So here we go. Aux battery is connected. Check this mega fuse here. I should really check both sides of this. They zip tie this cover on so it can't be removed. Easily, at least. All right, you just can't drop it. That fuse is definitely good. Okay, 100 amps. Now, got everything in the back together. Let's hook up the main battery. Sorry, Jared, this thing's absolutely filthy now.
It'll be okay.
Wow, that thing's quiet. How cool is that? Okay, terminal's all the way on. I'd say that's nice and tight. Check this one, nice and tight. Everything's back together. I like what you did with that.
Perfect.
It's perfect. We know this thing's gonna start, so I guess let's go hit the button. Key's still in here. It always does this. I told you. All the lights are gone. Check engine light cleared itself from being unhooked for so long. We do have a couple random errors, like the TPMS sensor is definitely bad on the driver rear wheel. It's always coming up. Now check all. Do they shut off while you're driving?
Yeah.
Okay. And of course we need to figure out what the warning is, which is probably seatbelt door or something like that. Let me try it. Nope, still have a warning. Maybe the warning is TPMS. I love that tack, how it lights up the actual segments. So when I was messing with this yesterday or the day before, I was like, huh, you have to always close the bottom like a truck tailgate. You don't, look at this. How cool is that? There's like a motor in here that winds up these two cables with like a cam or something, and it closes it and opens it by itself. It couldn't have been more complicated. They were like, what if we out BMW by a factor of 5? Well, it started right up as we expected. We got it down to access height, so it looks really cool, just slammed and sitting here. We're gonna kick the lift out from under this, and I think it's probably totally good to go. If not, off to Dana it goes. Obviously it's gonna need a radiator at some point, but for now, I think it's ready to return to service. The radiator leak is very, very slow. We found something interesting. The TPMS light's on the dash for all the wheels. And I was like, does this really happen all the time to you? Do you just see that error all the time? Jared said yes. And then he told me earlier that the other owners had another set of wheels and tires. And I was like, what if they put the wrong wheel and tire setup on here and it doesn't have the right TPMS sensors? And it turns out that's exactly what happened. These things had 315 megahertz sensors up to 2015, and then in the next model year, they switched these over to 433. And when I got out the TPMS tool, every wheel responded to 433, which is the reason this thing can't talk to its tires, to its wheels. So now we know why TPMS is messed up, and we cleared the codes and not a single code came back, which is crazy. So let's start this thing up if it starts again. Now it says 1 Celsius on the dash there, so I guess you could try to reconfigure or you gotta convert. No more Fahrenheit for you, man. Why does it run perfectly? I think we need to take it out for a rip because you said it was down on power.
Absolutely.
So let's do a test drive. It started right up again. So far, we're 20 for 20 starting this thing in the shop, which means it'll probably break out on the road, but now it won't break again for us. So we're gonna take it out on a test drive like we said, but I think this thing is all good to go. It was probably just like the YouTube comments said. Sometimes you gotta read those things. The ground in the driver's side wheel well forward of everything. So actually pretty easy to get to, and that would have taken a lot less time than checking every other connection in the system. That is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to head on over to shop WatchJRGo.com for cool shirts just like the one I'm wearing under this. And please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I will talk to you next time. Great camera.
Not bad for a 15.
Yeah.
This is the stupidest thing.
I love the armrest.
You do?
Well, yeah, it's like the old Tahoe Suburbans.
Yeah.
Also nice that this fits. My truck is 1 inch from each side of that. 1 inch.
It's a big old truck.
Well, all the lights are off the dash. It seems like it's running great, and we'll do a quick little test here. Cruising along at a normal speed, 60, 70, 80. Man, this thing's quick. Wow. It could use brakes.
Yeah, for sure.
It definitely brakes. Yes, I think I was just driving an SVR, and I don't remember it feeling that fast. This is nasty fast. 500 horsepower. Heck of a thing in an SUV. So there you go, what might be a resolution to the Range Rover saga. I will update you guys if Jared tells me it's stuck in his driveway again and he can't escape his house. But he did already say it's not getting parked in the driveway again.
No, it's going in the street.
It's going in front of the neighbor's house.
For sure.
Just to see. Oh man, oh, I don't know if I told you, but your windshield probably doesn't heat. You know these are grid heated windshields?
Right.
The fuse was blown. And when I talked to Dana about it, he said that a lot of times, and it's an aftermarket windshield, he said a lot of times they crush the wires, and that's why it's shorted. So it probably won't heat. Sorry, man. If you find yourself driving in Alaska or whatever they built these for, Russia, it probably won't work as well as it should.